Hey everyone, Mark Ferguson with Invest for More. Welcome to another one of my real estate investing videos. Today I want to talk about wholesaling. So before we get started, love for you to check out my blog, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I think I'm up to over 400 articles on my blog. We're doing a weekly podcast now. A lot of fun. Got some coaching programs too if anybody's interested. Investformore.com is my site. Had over 3 million views in 2015, so pretty awesome year. We'll get started on wholesaling. Before we get started, I am not a wholesaler, but I am an agent. I've been a real estate agent since 2001. I flipped 9 houses last year in 2015, and I own 16 rental properties. So while I don't consider myself a wholesaler, I have wholesaled properties before. I know a ton about wholesaling from either interviewing really successful wholesalers on my podcast or talking to other wholesalers. I was in a mastermind group with many different wholesalers, so I know a lot about the business. I'll tell you why I personally don't do a lot of wholesaling, but that doesn't mean it's not that no one should do wholesaling. I think it can be a really great business for the right people. I think there's a lot of programs, gurus out there who promote wholesaling as the easiest way to invest in real estate, the easiest way to make a lot of money really fast without any of your own money. And there's some truth to that, but for the most part, wholesaling is not going to be easy. It's not a walk in the park. It will take some hard work, some planning, goal setting, and it will take some money too. You can't do it with no money at all. If it were that easy, everybody would do it. Everybody would be making a ton of money on it. So don't always believe everything you hear, but we'll try and get into some of the truths, mistruths in wholesaling and give you a clear idea of what it really is, what it's about, what's legal and what's not legal. So that's really what I want to start out with first. Just because you hear something on the radio or you hear a podcast or you see it online does not mean it's legal. Always check out things yourself. Wholesaling is a very hot topic right now because some states are cracking down on wholesalers who they believe are practicing selling real estate without a license. So just because you read someone else did it doesn't mean it's legal. Doesn't mean you won't get in trouble for it. Ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law. So always check out your state laws. Always make sure you're adhering to what those are, and be very careful when you're wholesaling. The definition of practicing real estate without a license varies by state, but pretty much it's the idea of bringing a buyer and seller together to sell their house, buy their house, and you can't do that. You can't just take money for bringing a buyer and seller together unless you're a licensed real estate agent. But there's some things wholesalers do where they're not really doing that. They're buying and selling a house themselves. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the definition of wholesaling, basically buying a house or getting equitable title to a house, not doing any work to it, buying it very cheaply, selling it to another investor usually, and making a profit. A couple thousand, 5,000, 10,000. Some wholesalers make even more per deal. The wholesaler wants to get in and out very fast, sell their property or sign a contract, right away. In some cases, they do not use any of their own money. In some cases, they don't buy the house, which is how some wholesalers can get started without their own money, without putting a lot of equity capital into the business. But there's some restrictions with that. There's some problems. It's not always as easy as it sounds. The first thing any wholesaler has to do is be able to get a really good deal on properties. So there's a couple of different ways to get a great deal on properties. I'm a flipper. I buy rental properties. Everything I buy I want super cheap. I want it way below market value. Wholesalers are the same way. If you go out and just buy any deal you find on MLS and assume you can just sell that to someone else, you're going to be kidding yourself. You're going to be wasting your time. You're going to be wasting your money. You can get some good deals on MLS, but it'll take a lot of time, a lot of effort. You have to be very patient, act very fast to get those deals. If you're just buying up stuff on MLS, it is somewhat of a good deal, sort of looks like someone might want it. You're probably wasting your time because some other investor could go on the MLS, buy that property too. So where you really create value if you buy from the MLS is if you can find a deal that comes up and that same day you get it under contract before anyone else can get an offer in, or if you can buy something that's well below the asking price for some reason, if it's been on the market a while, it's got serious problems, a motivated seller, that's where you can create value on MLS. But it takes work. It's not easy, hop on Zillow one day and look through properties and find a couple that you can wholesale. It will take a lot of patience, a lot of hard work, and knowing your market very well. And something else wholesalers will have to be able to do is know values extremely well, because of who you're selling it to. You're selling it to other investors. You're not selling it to the general public in most cases. The other ways wholesalers can get great deals, the most popular one is probably direct marketing. So what you're doing is you're sending letters to absentee owners, sending letters to inherited properties, maybe sending letters to pre-foreclosures, trying to talk those people, get a house under contract or buy their house without them listing it on the MLS. That's how many wholesalers do business. Maybe those people want to sell it fast. Maybe it needs a lot of work. Maybe they don't want any showings. There's a number of reasons why people would not want to list their house on the MLS. And some people simply don't know any better and, think a wholesaler might have their best interest in mind and sell it that way. So that's another thing, there's a lot of shady stuff that goes on in the real estate business, the real estate investing side. I try to keep myself as above the board as I possibly can. My reputation is huge to me. My conscience is huge to me. I'm not one to try and lowball, buy super cheap houses from people because they don't know the true market value of their house, or they're being tricked into thinking their value is different than what it really is. I know some wholesalers do that. Not all of them do, but some do, and that is not something I do or condone. One reason why I don't do a lot of wholesaling myself or buying that way. But I'm not saying it's wrong or that always buying houses that way is wrong, because there are some people who want to sell without listing a house in MLS. That's just a fact. So if you can get those deals, that's where I really see most wholesalers who are super successful get their deals, is from off-market properties. Now, can you really make that much money wholesaling? Yes, you can. I know some wholesalers, they've been on my podcast, who are doing 10 or 15 deals a month and making $5,000 per deal. I mean, that's some serious money. That's a ton of money they're making from wholesaling, and they have not been doing it for very long, only a couple of years. I think maybe 3 years now. But they're not doing it with none of their own money. They're not just doing it without spending anything. When you're doing this direct marketing, when you're sending letters, another way to do it is put up bandit signs. So signs that say "We buy houses," you see on the side of the road. The billboards that say, "Hey, we buy houses for cash." Driving for dollars, looking for houses that are vacant or in very bad shape and finding those owners. All of that takes money. All of that takes time. It's not something that's simple and easy. A direct mail campaign, you might have to send out 4 or 5 letters to the same house before someone will call you. You might have 50 people call you before you find one person who is motivated enough or in the right situation to sell your house to you for cheap enough to make money on it. This is not something where you send out a few letters, get 5 calls, and have 5 wholesale deals. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and some money to send out those letters. If you're sending out 500 letters, you got to do postage, print them, buy envelopes. There's a lot of different things you have to set up and do. If you don't take your time to do it right, you're not going to get any good results. So it's not as simple as some people make it seem. So once you've got some properties that you feel you can wholesale, maybe you found some deals here and there, your main goal is to sell it to other investors who can buy very quickly. And the reason you're not selling it to owner-occupied buyers or mainstream general public is, one, most of those buyers have real estate agents who are looking for them on the MLS. 2, many of these properties need work. And if you're doing an assignment of contract or trying to sell it very fast, an owner-occupant can't buy those properties. You're going to need an appraisal, they're going to want to do an inspection, they want to get a loan, and you can't really do that on wholesale properties. So you need an investor to buy these properties for cash very quickly. When you're selling to an investor for cash and then you buy a house really quickly, that investor is going to want an awesome deal. That's why you have to know your market so well. If you're selling it to an investor who wants rental properties, selling it to an investor who wants to flip, you need to know how much they're buying properties for so that they're making enough cash flow or they're making a big enough profit on their flips. You can't just assume, oh, this house is worth $100,000 on MLS. I got it for 80,000. Any investor would be willing to buy this house from me for 85,000 because it's 15,000 below market. Real estate investors don't work that way. If you're flipping in the house, you're going to want a ton more room than that. You have to make repairs, pay a real estate agent, have all kinds of carrying costs, financing costs. You'll need much more room to flip a house than just 10, 20% below market. Usually it's 30% below market minus any repairs needed. So you have to remember there's got to be really good margins for those investors, and you have to do your homework to figure out what those margins are. The same for someone buying rental properties. Why in the world would they buy from you for cash just slightly below market when they go on the MLS and probably get just as good a deal if they're patient, know how to look? I buy most of my properties from MLS. I can get awesome deals on there, not all day long, but if I'm patient and wait for them, I can get deals on there as well. So don't assume just because you've got a marginal deal that you'll have investors jumping all over it. And that's the really second major part of wholesaling. The first part is finding the deal, finding awesome below market properties. The second part is finding your cash buyers. And there's a number of ways to find them, but finding cash deals that have been done in the last year is a great way to do it. Some realtors can help you do that. Public records, if you can search through those, can show you who bought for cash. Going to trustee sales, where there are cash purchases, going to auctions, looking on Craigslist, looking for houses on the MLS that you see have been flipped and trying to find that owner, who that owner was through public records is a great way to find those buyers. And the thing is, you need quite a few buyers to sell these wholesale properties to. Not every buyer is going to want to buy every house you have. Some might be tied up with other properties. Maybe the neighborhood's not the best, where they want to invest in. There's a number of different factors that come into it. And you have to make sure you've got a great deal for them too. I mean, that's key. All right, the last thing I really want to talk about, obviously there's a ton more that goes into wholesaling than what I'm describing, but the different ways to actually do wholesaling and do it legally. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice, but there's some obvious do's and don'ts as far as practicing real estate without a license. So if you just find a buyer and a seller and put them together and say, hey, I found this awesome house for you, and here's this seller. You guys go do your deal, give me a couple $1,000s. That's practicing real estate. If you don't have a license, it's illegal. You can't do that. So as a wholesaler, one, you either have to buy the property. So you get under contract, go to closing, pay the seller, and then find another buyer, sell it to them, you get your money back and plus some, hopefully. Or you might be able to assign the contract. In that case, you get a house under contract, you have an assignment clause in the contract, then you find your end buyer, and you assign that contract to that buyer for a fee. So the tricks and the problems with assigning a contract are, how are you marketing that property? So let's say you found this great deal, you put a contract on it, you want to assign it to somebody else, you post all over Facebook that you've got this great wholesale deal. You post on Craigslist, you've got this great wholesale deal. Maybe even put a yard sign out somewhere saying you had a great wholesale deal. You are marketing a house that you do not own, and you most likely do not have permission to market from the owner. That can be frowned upon in many, many states by law enforcement. Be very careful doing that. Even having an email list and sending out emails to your specific buyers, that can be considered borrowing in some states. It's kind of strict. This is why you have to do your research before you perform any of these activities. Word of mouth, calling up your friends, maybe that's not marketing. It's a very fine line. The other issue too is HUD homes, REO properties, most short sales will not let you assign their contracts. Just flat out, you can't do it. Another reason why MLS is hard to wholesale from. Obviously, buying the house outright is not an option for many wholesalers because they're starting out with not very much money. So how do you get around that? You do a double close. Again, check your state laws for legality of this because it's not always legal. Many title companies don't know how to do it either. But what you're doing is you get a contract to buy the house. you choose your own title company, you find your end buyer, and you do the closing the same day where you buy the house and where you sell the house to the end buyer. Some title companies will let that end buyer put their money in escrow, be held by a title company, so you can use that money to buy the house yourself from the first seller. You're never using your own money. You're basically using the buyer from you, their money, to buy the house from the seller. The house transfers to you for a short time, then you sell it very quickly to the end buyer. He's already paid for it. You take your fee in between that transaction. So you've actually bought the house, but you never really paid for it with your own money. You used the end buyer's money. Again, check the legality of these things. Could be tough to find title companies that will do that, but it is done all the time by many wholesalers. Many times they'll do great, make quite a bit of money doing the double closing. Some things to watch out for. Many REO companies will have a clause that says you can't sell the house in 30 days after you buy it. Some short sales do the same thing. So again, that makes it hard to buy from MLS if you're doing a double close, trying to buy distressed REO properties. HUD does not have that restriction. If you're buying as an investor, you can buy a HUD home, sell it 5 minutes later if you want to. There's no restrictions with HUD, as long as you're buying as an investor. All right, so what have I done as far as wholesale deals? Mine were nothing like what they teach you in some of these programs, wholesaling programs. I had a couple of flips that I was planning to repair, sell. I had too many flips to have them all being worked on at the same time. My contractors were too busy. So what I would do is I put some for sale by owner signs up on them, tell some of my investor friends about them, say, hey, if you want a cheap property, I've got this house I'll sell to you. Haven't done any work to it, but I got a great deal on it. And I did end up selling 2 properties like that in 2015. I think I made close to $20,000 on both of those, and I did buy them from MLS. But I flat out bought them, paid for them with my own money. They're actually sitting around for a month or two before I sold them, and that's kind of my wholesale deal without making any repairs to property, fixing them up. So not the traditional method of wholesaling, but technically I wholesaled them, made really good money without doing any work to them. So again, the reason I could do that is because I got such an awesome deal on them, acting extremely fast on property that I found on the MLS. One of those was an REO, so I could not have assigned that, and I don't think I could have done a double close. And the other one was a traditional sale. I could have assigned it or done a double close on that if I wanted to, and again, if everything was legal in your state. All right, so that's my quick overview for wholesaling. Any questions at all, leave me a comment. Shoot me an email, mark@investformore.com. I'm happy to respond to people. And of course, visit my blog, investformore.com. Ton of information on wholesaling, flips, rental properties, mindset, being a real estate agent too. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great day.